Hi, I'm not a black bear, and today I'm going to be talking about the recently released Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. As some of you might know, this is Square Enix's second attempt at this game. For those who don't know, this game originally came out in 2010 and didn't do too well because the game was almost unplayable. So they went back to the drawing board and remade the whole game. I've been playing this game for a few hours now, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm going to talk about what I've seen so far and give a bit of a first impression of the game. But before I get to that, I want to talk about the early access weekend. During early access, there were a ton of server issues, and for a good chunk of the weekend, a lot of players couldn't play. Now, nobody never likes getting a new game and not being able to play it right at release, especially when you pre-order it and they give you early access to play. Sure, it sucks, but I think we gotta give credit to the people over at Square Enix. They saw the problems immediately and they jumped in and helped. They also kept us updated as much as they possibly could. I think they did a pretty good job considering how most MMO releases have been pretty horrible in the past. This is definitely one of the smoothest MMO releases I have ever seen, and I think the response has shown us that the dev team over at Square Enix is going to be pretty dedicated to this game. But enough talk about that, let's get started. The user interface in this game is pretty nice. Your hotbar has multiple pages and you can move them to any part of the screen. The map is pretty cool too. It works the same way as any other map you've used in an MMO. I really like its art style, it's very well done. On the bottom right corner of the screen, you can see that you have all your extra utilities, like your character panel, your quest log, and your abilities menu. They also have nice extra things like a separate button for your return, which brings you back to the crystal you're attuned to, and you can toggle your weapon stance too. Right above the buttons, they have displayed each section of your bags. In this game, you don't have to buy bags, you're set with a 100 slot bag right from the start. Also, your armor is separately bagged, which is nice because it makes it easier to organize. I really like the character window. Every statistic has very informative tooltips. This makes it easier to see what statistics you should focus on for your class. There are also your resistances to elements. As cool as it is, I'm not sure how much important it's going to be at this stage of the game. For the most part, I really like how the UI looks, it's really nice, it's easy to use, and it doesn't feel like it gets in the way. So far, the combat in this game isn't special. It works the same way as games like World of Warcraft. You target mobs and use your abilities to defeat them. But the combat interface is pretty nice. The fly text is very informative and clear when inflicting damage, healing, or applying negative or positive effects. It makes it easier to maximize your output when healing or doing damage. Also, when the mobs begin to attack a target, the UI displays an arrow that points towards whoever it's going to attack. This is a really great addition, especially when you're in a party. It's a great way for classes to manage their threat generation. Tanks can tell when they are losing threat and pick up the mobs. DPS can tell when their damage output is too much for the tank and can adjust their rotations, and healers can react quicker to the situation. The combat is okay, but the UI makes things more organized. This game offers a mixed bag of quests. There are basic ones that task you with gathering items, defeating monsters, relaying messages, and interacting with objects. If you played an MMO before, you probably have done a quest like this. There's really nothing special here with these, but they do offer a bit of variety in a couple other ways. This game offers another kind of way to quest. They're called Lev quests. You acquire these quests the same way you do regular quests, except with one difference. Usually when you talk to an NPC, you get a task to do. When you talk to the Lev quest NPC, you are offered a list of different kinds of quests. These range from escort missions to kill quests. To start a Lev quest, you need to go to the area on the map as directed, and then you have to initiate it through your quest log. The real unique thing here is that you get the option to select the difficulty for the quest. That means, the higher the difficulty, the better your bonus is. I think these are a pretty good addition to the game. It breaks up the monotony of basic questing and adds variety to the game world. Instead of just grinding out the same quest in every area, you get the option to do something different. It also gives you the opportunity to group up with other players to do harder difficulties. There are also guild hests. Guild hests are mini dungeons with unique objectives that vary from defeating bosses, capturing creatures, or assaulting dungeons. You can initiate these quests through the Duty Finder, which essentially groups you with random players and sends you to the instance. If you played World of Warcraft or Star Wars The Old Republic, you probably know what I'm talking about. Guild hests give you the feel of a dungeon, but they take less time to do. As with most MMOs that use a group finder, specific classes are more likely to get into groups faster than others, namely healers and tanks. If you're playing a DPS class, it would be in your best interest to know someone who plays a healing or tank class. That way your group will be assembled quicker. If you played Guild Wars 2, you know what fates are. They are dynamic events that occur throughout the game, either at random or through interaction with specific NPCs. They range from defeating groups of rampaging mobs, escort missions, and boss fights. These fates early on are pretty basic, but there are more interesting fates later on in the game. For instance, later on you will have to defend a village from raiders who are trying to kidnap the NPCs. If you fail, they will actually take the NPCs out of the village. They can take anyone from vendors to quest givers. If this happens, a chain of fates will trigger that lead to a rescue missions to get the NPCs back. This is pretty awesome. It makes the game world seem a bit more believable. It makes fates more dynamic and interesting. It also adds a little backstory to the zone that explains the struggles of the villagers. The cutscenes in this game are what you would expect from a Final Fantasy game. Good animation and great voice acting. At least, that's what you would expect, right? There is voice acting in the main story, and it's very good, but for some reason, not all the cutscenes are voiced over. The two main characters you see here are voiced over, but when you see them later on in a different cutscene, they're just talking through chat bubbles. If you're familiar with older Final Fantasy games, you probably know about this. They did it a lot in those games because of hardware limitations. I don't think it's a big deal, it's reminiscent of the older games, and it seems like invoking nostalgia is a common theme here. Fans of the older games probably won't be bothered by this, but for people who haven't played a Final Fantasy game, it might be a bit annoying, but you probably could get used to it, and it shouldn't be a game-breaking decision for you. Overall, this game is shaping up to be a pretty good MMO. I'm not going to say if you should get this game or not, because I think it's too early on to tell, but I will say I'm enjoying what I've seen so far. The game is absolutely gorgeous from character design right down to its soundtrack. The combat is what you would expect from an MMO, but I still think it's fun. I really like how they're giving variety to quests via fates, love meets, and guild hests. It's nice to see that they're trying to add more variety to questing in the game. Now there are a few things that I still haven't talked about yet, namely PvP, dungeons, crafting, classes, and chocobo battles. Yes, there are chocobo battles, and I gotta say I'm really excited to see how they work. Since I haven't gotten to unlock these features in the game yet, I'm not going to go over them, but as soon as I do, I will put up an individual video for each one. In the case of dungeons, I'm going to do separate videos for each dungeon, giving an overview and a brief walkthrough for each one. I'm not a black bear. This is my first impression on Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. Thank you for watching, and hope that you stick around for more videos.